Don't let that valley between her two milk Mount Everest fool you. The girl might be pretty stacked, but this is actually a really wholesome manga. So, prepare your insulin shots because it's about to get real diabetical in here. Now imagine this. You're walking into your class and overhears that the cutest girl at school who everyone has zero chance with is about to date you as a punishment for losing a game. Two thoughts most likely come to mind. Hip, hip, hooray, I'm getting to date the cutest girl at school. Punishment? What the fuck? But once she starts dating you, she realizes you're actually a Thundercock Ultra Chad and ends up head over heels for you. Yes, I know that sounds absolutely amazing. Unfortunately for us, we're going to have to imagine this for a little longer. And by longer, I mean forever. But that's why this manga is here. The manga is called The Gal Who Was Meant to Confess to Me as a Game Punishment Has Apparently Fallen in Love with Me, and it's an amazing manga. It's cute, it's wholesome, and it needs a shorter name because holy good lord, this is a whole description. And this is actually going to be the first manga of 2024 to make it in the just fucking fuck already list. Our protagonist, Mizumi Yushin, may look like your typical loser protagonist in romance mangas, but no. Although he has zero friends and is an introvert, he does not get bullied or anything. Besides, his hobbies are pretty chill. He plays video games and carries boats and logs, so that automatically makes him way cooler than most romance protagonists. He overhears his classmates inviting Nanami and her friends to karaoke, but they can't join them since they're in the middle of an errand, so they said maybe next time. While Mizumi was about to leave, he realizes he forgot his pencil case, and when he got up to his classroom, the three girls are playing cards and Nanami lost, so her friends said as a punishment, she must confess to a boy and go out with him for a month. Mizumi plans on leaving after grabbing his pencil case, but this conversation is a bit too interesting for him to leave. Then Nanami said the confession as a punishment is unacceptable. Now, while trying to listen to their conversation, our boy got sidetracked, and the next thing he know, he's focusing on her legs instead. He fought off the horny demons and shook it off, otherwise he might have started drooling on the spot if he stared at them for a bit longer. As he's about to leave, Nanami tells her friends that playing with people's feelings is completely messed up, and a confession should be taken seriously, and they should only confess to someone they truly love. Her friend teases her, saying she's saying all that, but she's the only one who hasn't got a boyfriend, even though she received the most confessions among the three. Nanami explains that it's because most men are degenerates, and they're only looking at her body. Her friend agrees and hugs her. However, Nanami also isn't used to being around guys. Mizumi is surprised to hear that Nanami hasn't got a boyfriend. Her friends are really worried about her, thinking she might get hit on by some weirdo if she stays single forever. Her friend suggests she go out with a boy and get used to them at the same time, and even if they break up, it'll still be fine since the guy at least gets to date Nanami. However, Mizumi thinks that dating her will result in you getting lots of envious gazes from others like their Batman lurking in the shadows, since Nanami is the unreachable goat. She's the final boss. She is the Thanos of their school. Nanami's friends won't let her off the hook, and she must complete her punishment, so they tell her to confess to Mizumi Yushin, who's the quietest guy in their class. Now, why they gotta do our boy like that? She really said dating Mizumi is a punishment. Yikes. Our boy heard this, and Nanami said she'll give it a try. Her friend suggests she invite him to the back of the school and just tell him she likes him. Mizumi got home, and although he has no friends at school, he has a lot of online friends. So he asks his friend Baron-san what should he do. His friend thinks about it and said he should accept her confession and take her to eat out and eat her out after. He thinks this is the perfect chance for our boy to get some female interactions, since she's also trying to get used to boys. However, another person named Peach-san disagrees and tells our boy to deny her since playing with other people's feelings is a no bueno. But Baron tells her to calm down and think of it from the marketing perspective, since she's the popular girl. It's better for Mizumi to get dumped than for him to dump the popular girl. This way, Mizumi could still keep his reputation, and he also gets a temporary girlfriend. Baron said he should see this as a chance. Since he has 1 month, he should try his best to have her actually fall in love with him, and he can continue going out with her. And if he's lucky, she might just split her legs open right down the middle and he'll get in a cheeky slide. Mizumi then realizes that out of all the languages Baron-san could have spoken, He chose to speak straight facts. So he daps him up, and Baron warns him to not go in dry and make sure he moist up the area before he dives in balls deep into her private aquarium. It's the next day, and Nanami walks up to Misumai's table while blushing and asks if he can spare some time for her after school. Misumai said sure, and this is where he reveals that he may look like a loner that don't really know what's going on around him, but he actually knows a lot about Nanami. Like how she always expose a bit of valley between her mountains and how she's well known for her unconditional acceptance of everyone, but her friendliness would always be mistaken by guys thinking she's into them. Misumai thinks what would happen if an introvert like him rejects Nanami. He wonders how many Nanami stans will show up at his house and start throwing tomatoes at his window. Then suddenly the voices in his head asks, "Is the popular girl going to confess to you because you're Misumai Yushin? Or are you Misumai Yushin because the popular girl is going to confess to you?" Misumai uses his IQ of 530,000. He came to the realization that he should accept her confession, otherwise the boys will hate him. But at the same time, even if he were to accept her confession, the guys would get jealous and still hate him. So it's a lose-lose situation. Then the voices questioned him, who's stronger, her stans or you? Misumai replied, "If her stans were to team up and jump me all at once, it might cause me a little trouble. But would you lose?" "Nah, I'd win." It's after school and Misumai meets up with Nanami. Nanami is blushing, but our boy is blushing even harder, almost like he's the one doing the confession. Nanami thanks him for showing up and asks if he has any idea what's going on. Misumai acts like he's an NPC and says he has no idea. But if it's about money, he don't have any. Nanami quickly yells out that she's not here to run his pockets. She starts pouting, and after looking at Misumai once more, she takes in a deep breath and turned bright red as she tries her best to confess to him. Our boy then remembers Baron San's wise words. He tells Misumai that instead of looking at her legs or her milk mountains, he should just look up at the sky. So that's exactly what he does, but as Nanami confesses to him, he notices a girl on the top floor pouring down a bucket of water directly onto where she's standing. "Get down, Mr. President!" Misumai said as he jumps onto Nanami and pushes her down to the ground. Nanami is absolutely speechless, thinking Misumai completely skipped the warm-up part and he's just going straight for the kill on her nether lips. She screams out in terror because this is what you would call harassment, but the water came down splashing all over our boy. He then said, "You ladies all right?" But before he could complete his sentence, the bucket hit the back of his head and knocked him out. He opened his eyes back up, and he's now in the infirmary. He wondered what happened, and realizes that he was hit with a bucket. Turns out the girl from the top floor isn't a paid actor to be the greatest wingman of all time, but it's just a common act at school where they pour water down from the top floor when they clean up. But that still does not explain why in God's name did the girl drop the entire damn bucket. Then the curtain opens and it's Nanami. He realizes she's the one who brought him here and he apologizes to her, but she quickly tells him not to worry about it and asks about his injuries. Misumai assures her that he's fine since he has a hard head. She smiles in relief, and he asks, what about her? She said she's completely fine thanks to him. Misumai got up and explains to her that he's happy she wasn't hurt, but suddenly she starts blushing and tells him to go back to bed. Misumai got confused and he realizes he doesn't have a shirt on. Nanami starts blushing and compliments him on how he has an athletic body. Bro actually got that sleeper build. After all that, the situation got more awkward than watching a recap Haven video with your parents. Until the nurse came in and asks if they're using this place for romance, she brought our boy some fresh clothes. He puts on his clothes and the nurse lets him know that Nanami is an absolute keeper since she's been here ever since he was knocked out. The nurse smiled and said it must be nice being young. Misumai got out the infirmary and Nanami thanks him for keeping her safe. She then asks for his answer. Misumai got confused and she reminds him that she confessed to him earlier, so she would like to hear his answer. Our boy remembers this, and he recalls Baron-san's wise words. He tells Misumai to look at her in the eyes when giving his answer. So he looks straight into her and said if she don't mind him becoming her boyfriend, he'll gladly accept. Nanami blushed real hard after hearing his answer. She couldn't believe it. She was so happy that she could have passed out on the spot. But then she realizes something and pouts. She blushes and tells Misumai to call her Nanami since they're going to be a couple from now on, and she'll also call him Yushin. Bro starts sweating since he's not comfortable with calling girls by their first name, but he still does it and calls her Nanami as he reaches out his hand toward her. She shook his hand and smiled, saying, "Nice to meet you, Yushin." The teacher interrupts their little diabetic moment, and the two instantly recoil back. The teacher teases them and tells our boy to always wrap up his hammer before he smash her. Nanami blushed real hard, and our boy tells his teacher to not say something like that out of the blue. While on his way home with Nanami, things got pretty awkward, and Misumai thinks about what should he talk about since Gotron-san didn't tell him what to do in this situation. So Misumai went in raw and just starts talking about the weather, and Nanami just turned bright red as she stayed silent. Then she asks them to exchange contact info, and she asks what social media platform does our boy use. He explains that he has some apps, but he rarely uses them. He just used them to enter free giveaways and to get items from video games. Nanami starts laughing, and Misumai wonder what's so funny. She explains that she's happy since she's his first contact. They exchange numbers, and Misumai is confused about the entire situation since he didn't think she'd be down to exchange info, because after all, this entire thing was just a dare. He just don't get women at all. Same man. They got to the train station and they're going in the opposite direction, so Nanami said goodbye to our boy Yoshin, and they parted ways. While on the way home, Misumai thinks that Nanami seemed a bit sad and wonders if it's because the confession was a dare. Our boy got home, turned on his computer, and hopped on the game with his friends. Baron tells him to not talk about himself when he don't know what to talk about, and he should ask her questions instead. Misumai quickly take down notes from the Riz Lord himself, but suddenly Peach-san interrupts them and says he should break up with her before he gets hurt. Baron tells her to calm down since they just started dating, but since they're now going out, Baron suggests they set a goal for this week. He tells Misumai to be able to hold her hands by the end of the week, and he tells our boy to stop overthinking it since it ain't that deep. Then he gets a notification on his phone, and it's from Nanami. She invites him to walk to school with her tomorrow. Misumai starts sweating buckets, and he once again remembers that Baron-san told him to not overthink it. So he tried replying in the most natural way possible, which honestly turned out pretty good. And Nanami replied saying she's looking forward to it. Misumai reports the situation back to his captain, and Baron-san tells him to arrive earlier than usual. Besides, he would want to see his lovely girlfriend as soon as possible too, right? Misumai starts blushing over the fact that she's now his girlfriend, even if it's just for a month. Baron then gives him some more romance advice, like how he's supposed to prioritize her over everything from now on. Okay, this Baron guy might be the ChatGPT of dating advice. And this is a heartbreaking moment for our boy since he's a gamer by heart, and now he has to give it up. Then he realizes that video games are permanent, but Nanami's juicy lips could be temporary, so he's willing to give up his gaming for her. Misumai got off the game and he looks at her messages once more before going to bed. Meanwhile, Nanami is also doing the same. She absolutely soaked her Calvin Kleins at the thought of getting to walk to school with him. Misumai pulls up to the train station an hour early, but when he arrives, Nanami is already there waiting for him. He got confused thinking he's having a schizophrenic episode and forgot how to look at the time. But no, Nanami is just different like that. He walks up to her, and Nanami is surprised to see him also so early. She said good morning to him. While on their way to school, Nanami asks, "Why did he come so fast?" That's what she said. He explains that he was simply nervous. She smiled and said it's good since they got to see each other quicker. Misumai turned red, and after he looks at her again, he realizes Nanami braided her hair. Baron-san came in clutch once more as he remembered him telling him to compliment any changes. So Misumai compliments Nanami's hair, saying it's cute. She got super excited and was really happy to hear this from him. She was relieved to hear this since she was trying this hairstyle out for him. Misumai got confused, so she shows him a picture. She got the same hairstyle as the character on his social media profile. Suddenly our boy freaks out since she now knows that he's a 2D girl enjoyer and probably thinks he doesn't shower and rub his rocket all day long to anime titties. But she tells him it's fine to like anime since she also watches some too. She then said, "It's cute, right?" And our boy quickly agreed and calls her cute. She thanks him and they continue their walk. Then Nanami stops them and suggests they hold hands on the way. Misumai was shocked by her sudden approach, and he almost sold the bag since she thought he didn't wanted to. Our boy quickly saves himself and reaches out his hand. She starts laughing since that's a handshake. Misumai finally learned how to properly hold hands, and as they're walking, every student stared at them and all the boys are feeling like vengeance right now, and they're ready to deliver justice right upon our boy. Nanami whispers to him and asks if everyone is talking about them. Then Misumai's typical rom-com protagonist personality kicks in, and he starts apologizing to Nanami for having to bear someone like him. She pouts after hearing this, and she gets in front of him and says that's not the reaction she wanted. Everyone else's opinion don't matter since he's her boyfriend now and he looked cool yesterday. Misumai starts blushing since she's really going the extra mile here even though it's just for a punishment. Nanami tells him to have a relationship on equal footing. Misumai apologizes and thinks that she probably wants it to look like the most ideal relationship possible. He then wonders what kind of face would she make if he told her he knew all of this is just a punishment. Misumai raises his hand and suddenly poke her cheeks. Nanami froze like she just saw a ghost and suddenly freaks out. Misumai also panics since she asked him to be equals and he apologizes, but she lets him know that he just startled her, that's all. They arrived at school, and Nanami held onto our boy's arm as she walks into class. Her friends came in and congratulates Nanami. She thanks the two of them, whose names are Hatsumi and Ayumi. Then, a group of students swarms Nanami and asks why is she hanging out with Misumai. She quickly grabs onto our boy's arm and tells everyone she confessed to him yesterday. They all panicked, and Nanami's friends cleared the area. Misumai thanks both Hatsumi-san and Ayumi-san. After hearing this, Nanami pouts at him and asks, why is he calling these two by their first names all of a sudden, and he was calling her by her last name? Her friends saved our boy from this sticky situation and said he just don't know their last names. So they properly introduced themselves. The tall girl with black hair is Autofuku Hatsumi, and the other is Kamuenai Ayumi. Now I know I said I like tall girls, but why the girl on the left got me feeling some type of way. Just by looking at her I can feel something rumbling in my pants. Then her friends asks if Nanami has something to tell our boy. She turned real red and asks Misumai to have lunch with her since she made a 2-person bento. They got to the rooftop with her bento, and she revealed she woke up early just so she could prepare this. However, everyone and their grandmother is staring at them, but Bro is just going to have to deal with it. He dug in and it's delicious. Even though the onigiris are quite small for his liking, they are very cute. She thanks him and explains that she has small hands, so that's about as big as they get. After realizing her fingers have touched the onigiris, our boy instantly starts chomping down on the food like there's no tomorrow. He finished the food and compliments Nanami's cooking skills, but suddenly his stomach growls. Nanami quickly apologizes since her bento must have not been enough for a boy, so she decides to give him some of her food, and she attempts to feed him. Misumai starts blushing but went in for it anyway. Nanami then suggests they go buy a bento after school since her lunch wasn't enough for him. It'll be like an after-school date. The two left school together, and while holding hands, Nanami sees that our boy is looking a bit down, and she thinks it's because he doesn't want to hold hands with her. But as soon as she let go, Misumai instantly grabs her hand back up and lets her know that that's not it, and he'd be happy to hold her hand. They arrived at a mall, and they went over to pick bento boxes. Nanami picked one, but Misumai thinks it's a bit too kawaii for a Chad like him. Suddenly Nanami smiled and said they really look like a newly engaged couple. Misumai blushed and said he thought the same. And they finally agreed on what bento box he should get. As Nanami is about to buy it, Misumai stops her and said he should pay for it since he's the one using it. But Nanami said, "Nah, I'd pay." Misumai insists since he don't want to rely on Nanami for everything. In the end, she gave up and allows Misumai to pay for the bento. After receiving the bag, she smiled and said it feels just like a present. She asks what would he like in his bento for tomorrow. Misumai requests a hamburger, and she asks if he eats pepper. Our boy lets her know he isn't good with strong-smelling things like peppers, and it's the same for her. Then she jokingly adds that since it's her cooking, he'll eat it anyway. And to her surprise, Misumai said yes, he'll eat anything she cooks. She starts laughing, and that concludes their after-school date. Now it's time for Misumai to report his situation back to the lieutenant. He tells Baron-san that before she left, she said she'll call him tonight, and he also wasn't able to tell her he knew about the punishment thing. Baron tells him she most likely forgot about the punishment already since they're able to hold hands and she even made a bento for him, and they've only been together for 1 day. However, Misumai does not believe he got the infinite Riz glitch, and he believes she's just using him like a VR headset as a simulation for her to get used to being around guys. Baron thinks that the possibility of that is not zero. But if that's the case, wouldn't she push him away and tell him to not interact with her at school since it was just a punishment? However, Misumai thinks she would never do that since she's really nice. Then Peach-san walks in and said she's just toying with him and he should break up with her ASAP. Now Peach-san might be a D1 hater because she's really cheering for their breakup here. Baron then asks if our boy thanked her for the meal. Misumai said he only said thank you, and that's about it. So Baron suggests he try to treat her to something nice and return the favor with something different. Misumai thinks it's a great advice, and Baron suggests he asks her out on a date this Saturday. Misumai panics, since asking a girl out is something he hasn't yet unlocked at his level, but Baron tells him to calm down and just take her to a movie or something. Misumai listens to his lieutenant's commands and said he'll do it, and Baron also suggests he asks about her hobbies and other kinds of stuff, so he knows what movie to pick. Some time has passed, and Misumai is now receiving a call from the raid boss. All his trainings until now has led up to this very moment. Those dating advice from the Goatron himself is about to pay off. He picks up, and she apologizes for taking so long since she was talking with Hatsumi and the others. Our boy said it's fine since he was also farming dungeons with his friends. He then asks, what did she want to talk to him about? Nanami explains that today is her first time going out with a boy, so she wanted to ask if she did anything weird or made him uncomfortable, to which Misumai said not at all and he enjoyed it. Our boy then realizes that since he's on a call with Nanami, it feels like she's directly next to his ears, and he might start acting up and put a hole or two in his pillow. Nanami then said it seems like he was the only one able to stay calm, and she was going around in circles. Misumai quickly tells her that that isn't the case, and he was just thinking about how to thank her. Then our boy activates his trump card and invites her to go on a movie date with him this Saturday. Silence filled the air as our boy let out a little fart of stress. Nanami said she already promised to go watch a movie with her friends. After hearing this, our boy fell to his knees and the word defeat in red color appeared everywhere he looked. He starts panicking since he had the entire scenario planned out in his head, but now there's been a malfunction in the system and Nanami is going off script. Sweat starts forming on his face and he starts losing it since it's all freestyle from here onwards. So he asks her what about Sunday? Is she free to go to the movies on Sunday? Nanami asks if this is his thanks for her bento. He said yes. Nanami said, then she should put more effort into his next bento. And she said, let's go on a date on Sunday. He starts blushing and he can't wait to hear about what Nanami-san likes. He tells her it'll be an amazing date, and over at Nanami's point of view, she's lying in bed while blushing real hard since Misumai just invited her out on a date. Now Baron GPT-san might be the absolute goat, but this right here is the true goat. Because god damn the things I would let her do to me. She is looking hella breedable.